Hi folks, thinking slow here. There has been a huge amount of fuss on social media and mainstream media now, even about the arrest of this gentleman on a anti-war sort of pro-Palestinian march a couple of days ago in London, and this is being plastered everywhere. And I'm going to show you the sequence of events that led up to this arrest, and hopefully convince you this is yet another psyop, and it's part of the ongoing endless psyops designed to create more division within the UK. This one particularly is in terms of anti-Muslim feeling and sentiment, and this is all being done very deliberately by a very dishonest cast of actors. And the picture that the media is projecting to you of an innocent guy holding up a completely valid sign being sort of harassed by the police for no reason is completely fake. This was completely set up from beginning to end, and hopefully I can convince you of that. Before getting into the nitty-gritty of the actual incident, I just wanted to let you know that we have a Substack up and running now, and there's been quite a few articles there in the last few days, which is why you haven't seen so much video material. But there was a big one a couple of days ago called The Politics of Division that actually talks about all the dimensions that are being used to divide people and all the methodologies that are being used to divide people and radicalize them. And that is coming primarily from the government, but it's also coming from the left through intersectional thinking, and it's also coming from the right through this firing up anti Muslim sentiment. And that's exactly what this staged event is that we're going to look at now. So this is the staged event then, and this is Mr. Niyak, a Iranian national in London, holding up a sign which, to almost everybody, I would have to say, is completely non-controversial. Now, the narrative is that this guy was essentially arrested for holding up the sign, and this he was holding this up in the middle of a very, very large sort of anti-war, I guess you could call it pro-Palestinian march. There's been different estimates for how many people were there, but it's in the hundreds of thousands. And he sort of inserted himself into the middle of that and took this sign out. Now, the first guys that pushed a completely dishonest narrative were GB News. Again, this is the lady, as I remember, who pushed all the vaccine nonsense out as well. And she's interviewing someone that said, today I saw the police arrest a lone man holding a sign that said Hamas are terrorists. I could not believe my eyes. Or maybe you couldn't believe your eyes because it wasn't true. This is a lie. And the first denial of those claims came from the Med itself, where they said quite clearly that this guy had been arrested for assault and then he was de-arrested. I think a lot of people have seen this statement. Now, what then happens is the right media starts to question the video. Was he involved in an altercation? Was he not involved in an altercation? But what they don't do, and they don't do this deliberately, is to provide the context for this guy. Because once you know the context, you know you're being fooled again. The context is that this guy is essentially a full-time provocateur. This is what he does. This is exactly the same stunt he pulled a few weeks ago on another anti-war rally where he did the same thing. He waved a sign in people's faces and ended up getting arrested. And if you look through his timeline, you'll see this over and over again at other events. He's also a relentless self-promoter. He has about 60,000 tweets, which makes him doing this essentially on a full-time basis. So if you know that, you then suddenly the whole narrative starts to unravel. This is just an innocent guy protesting against Hamas that was then picked upon. None of that's true. Now, so he knows already in March, at this weekend, exactly what the consequences are of what he's just about to do. Now, I think the real ringleader and conductor behind this scene was a guy called Mayhar Tousi. And Mayhar Tousi proudly announced that he just happened to be there with his camera and captured all this. Now, this is a coincidence where two Iranian nationals in London who are both affiliated with opposition to the Iranian regime just happened to be in the same place at the same time. And in this march of however many 100,000 it was, say 300,000, they were in exactly the same spot. Now, I don't believe that for one second. I'm pretty sure they coordinated this, and Tousi was not just by accident on hand to take all this video material. Now, the important thing to know about Tousi is he is a vile, horrible race baiter. And this is the kind of tweet that he puts out. This is, I'm not going to say what's on here because I don't want this video deleted, but this is the shockingly offensive kind of nonsense this fool sends out through social media. Angry Muslims, every time they use their own toxic, violent quote against them, and you can see you've got genitalia on the guy's head here. This is who he is. This is Tousi. He pretends to be a nice, friendly, well-spoken sort of a guy who's adopted the UK and British values. None of that's true. And that's even more clearly illustrated in this second tweet, where after the events of the march, Lee Rigby's widow, with a lot of other people who had survived acts of terror, or they had lost relatives, close relatives in acts of terror, they got together and put together a short statement which essentially said the answer to Islamist terrorism is not to create another form of extremism. It was a very reasonable letter written by people who really had, I mean, they had lost loved ones to Islamic terrorism. So they really are badly affected by those events. And the response from your polite, well spoken, adopted British Iranian is she can fuck off. And this is typical Tousi. He is a disgusting race baiter. This is who he is. Now, the real issue with him is, like many of these provocateurs, is he pretends that he's actually here solving a problem, which we do have a problem of a very large number of people in the UK who haven't integrated well. And he is apparently solving that problem. But the real issue is that he is in London really for a completely different agenda. And his different agenda has to do with his own beef with the leadership of Iran. That's got no, I have no interest in the leadership of Iran, but that's what he's here for. And the same with the guy holding that Hamas poster. He is also heavily involved in opposition to the regime in Iran. They have their own ideas that they want to have the royal family reinstated, or they want a secular government, or they want something else. They don't want the current regime that you have in Iran. Now, he's using essentially anti-Muslim feeling here, or he's creating that anti-Muslim feeling here, because that helps him on his real agenda, which is causing trouble for the official regime inside Iran. And that's an issue that's of no interest to me. But he's hijacking events in the UK for his own ends, in my view. Um, the other huge red flag you get with Tousi is massive fake amplification of his tweets. And I'm just doing one here. This takes 5 minutes when you know what you're looking for. This is just one he did a couple of days ago, a pretty non-committal statement about something in Hollywood. When I last looked, it was 900 likes for a non-statement, which is just really impossible. I took a screen grab of some of the likes, the accounts liking, so you can see it's got all the usual red flags, no bio, no bio, no biopic, lots of numbers in the name, and then if you just open one of them up, almost no followers, really no tweets, but 58,000 likes. And all those likes are going to all the usual suspects. It's all the provocateurs who I've covered in another video are receiving those likes. So this is a huge red flag. This guy is pushing somebody's agenda, and that somebody is making sure that Tousi gets very heavily amplified. And like a lot about this guy, his social media traffic is also fake. And on top of all that, he, stone cold lies as well. So in May 2022, he said the WHO treaty had stopped, the treaty had been blocked. I replied to him at the time, this is completely false. You need to clarify this. What didn't get approved was the international health regulations, but that didn't affect the treaty process that carries on regardless of what happened to the international health regulations. So I don't think he ever did clarify this, and this is just kind of the misinformation he pushes out. Again, helpful to the establishment because they don't want you getting too excited about the WHO treaty, especially back in 2022 when there was a realistic chance of derailing it. So, either through his own incompetence or through dishonesty, this headline is completely false. This is absolute misinformation. And then what he's doing now is he's aligning himself with the sort of alt-right provocateurs who I've covered in other videos. So the Tice and the Murrays and all those guys who are actively working to generate anti-Muslim hatred. That's their agenda. And ludicrously, he's sort of hugging British flags here, and he actually put out a tweet. It said something like, we need to make Britain British again." To which the obvious answer is, well, that's kind of odd coming from an Iranian. But anyway, that's what he does. He's wrapping himself up in all this flag waving nationalism, but actually, he's involved in all kinds of other agendas. And just to be clear, there is obviously a reasonable position to take on immigration and integration of Muslim faith into the UK. And where we shouldn't be is oppression of any kind of minority group, including Muslims. They should not be oppressed by the majority. There should be tolerance, which I think by and large there is. But what we shouldn't have, which is the sort of other extreme position, is imposition of really any minority beliefs on the majority. And that's very much where we are in the UK now. And so the state is essentially doing this, but it's also beginning to do this slightly in that it's turning a blind eye to smearing anti-war protesters as hate marchers and Hamas supporters and whatever else. So the state is really heavily involved in this and to some extent involved in this, which is going to cause a high level of tension. And what they won't do is just, this is the area we need to be in. So in making this video, I'm not naive in the sense that there should be completely open borders and we should be funding faith schools and mosques with taxpayer funding. No, I don't believe we should be doing that. There should be tolerance, but that's it. We don't want to go to this side or to that side. So that's where I stand on this issue. So the other depressing thing about this episode is the people that we had very strong affiliation with, who we worked very closely together with over the whole COVID issue, who were there telling the truth and exposing the lies about hospitals being full of unvaccinated, etc. They've now fallen by the wayside because they've been reporting on this arrest, and they have not been deliberately, in my view, providing you any of the context around this guy, Mr. Niyak. They haven't told you that he's doing the same stunt of waving placards in people's faces over and over again. They haven't told you he's a relentless attention seeker with about 60,000 tweets. And they haven't told you the guy that just happened to be there, also Iranian, also a dissident, filming all this, has rabid hatred of Muslims. And all of those things, of course, are extremely relevant for understanding the significance of that arrest. This is not a plain vanilla free speech issue where an innocent young lamb has gone out to make his case against terrorism and then been beaten by the state for doing that. That's the narrative. It's full of holes. It's completely false. And you can see that through some amount of research, which doubtless the people making those reports will also know, but they've chosen, in my view, deliberately to omit all of that context and keep you sort of emotionally hooked on this completely fake narrative that just falls to pieces when you start scratching at it. So I hope you found this interesting. If you read the Substack article, you get a lot more of the thinking behind this politics of division and a lot more evidence about who is doing this division and why. So that's worth reading. Now, as we always say at the end, we can only bring you the truth if our subscribers are able to help us. And I think as time goes on, you've seen more and more people fall by the wayside who are pushing lies or omitting important information because they're pushing an agenda, or they're looking for clickbait, one or the other. The only way we can keep just trying to tell you what the actual truth is, unvarnished, is if our subscribers support us. And if we don't get the support, then we do close down because it's just not worthwhile. If there isn't the interest in the truth, then there's no point in producing it. So please, right now, go across to Patreon, sign up. There's a lot of benefits from being in Patreon. We have quite a good discussion in there, and I think that group is really helping us navigate through these endless deceptions and through what is going to be very choppy water. Because if we're right that people are deliberately manufacturing racial and religious hatred, things are going to start getting pretty hairy in the next year or so. And the way to deal with that is to get good information, get truthful analysis, which is what you'll get from us. But if we can't get the subscription level going, it just becomes impossible. So thank you very much. I hope you found this interesting. Please share as well. Thank you. Bye. Stay free. Do not stay safe.